From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Learning through trying.
Anytime you're being innovative and doing an early adopter and some of this stuff, everybody learns from your mistakes.
Meet a couple that is all about regenerative ag. How much longer can these higher cattle prices really last?
We're not seeing any significant heifer retention at this point.
We put that question to industry leaders as we continue to examine the state of the beef industry, as the clock ticks on the possibility of a government shutdown.
I'm really worried that a budget package isn't reached and that USDA data may stop if the government comes to a halt, if you will.
The big impact that could have on agriculture right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when experience meets expertise. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Brook coming to you from the Farm Journal studios in Kansas City. Clinton is on assignment. We are just days away from a potential government shutdown, and with only a few days left in the current congressional session, lawmakers are trying to salvage a spending deal before the September 30th deadline. House Speaker Republican Kevin McCarthy is working to convince his colleagues to come together to pass a conservative bill to keep the federal government open. He is vowing to bring a vote to the floor today on it. But whatever Republicans come up with in the House, it is expected to be rejected by the Senate, where Democrats and most Republicans together want to fund the government. The so-called Problem Solvers Caucus is now meeting. They're looking at a plan that would include the use of a measure called a discharge petition. It would allow the House to send a temporary stopgap spending bill to the Senate.
If moderate Republicans sign a discharge petition with Democrats, they are signing their own political death warrant.
If the clown show of colleagues that refuse to actually govern does not want to pass a CR, I will do everything we need to make sure that a CR passes. The bottom line here is this: we're not shutting the government down.
If a government shutdown does happen, experts tell us don't bank on more cuts to USDA's yield forecast next month. There have been 14 shutdowns since 1981. The White House is warning that even a partial government shutdown will cause disruptions at airports, delay food safety inspections, halt infrastructure projects, and leave military personnel working without pay. ProFarmer says USDA activities that will continue during a shutdown include meat, poultry, and egg inspection services, grain export inspections, child nutrition programs, and SNAP benefits. What won't continue? USDA crop production reports. The next one is set to be released Thursday, October 12th.
And I'm really concerned about the U.S. Congress getting a budget pact and maybe the government closed down. We saw President Biden talking of that this week. So I'm really worried that a budget package isn't reached and that USDA data may stop if the government comes to a halt, if you will, as funds are not available.
ProFarmer says USDA and NASS will not be able to collect data or publish reports during a shutdown. On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve announced it would be holding its benchmark lending rate steady, with officials waiting for more information to see how previous rate hikes impacted the economy. The decision comes as the U.S. is facing new financial hurdles, including a United Auto Workers strike. Along with that, gas prices are hitting record highs for the year, impacting everyone from commuters to farmers.
Input costs are through the ceiling. My risk exposure is through the ceiling. It's a risky, scary time. Last year, we put out $31,000 in fuel. I'm scared to even imagine what it's going to be this year.
And if the government does shut down, the Bureau of Labor Statistics says it will halt releasing data on metrics, including unemployment and inflation. That would hinder the Federal Reserve's ability to get a complete look at the overall economy. It's a tale of opposites weather-wise right now, and the west is in a cool down while the east is warming up. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht shows us what's happening.
That's exactly right, Michelle. In fact, when you look at the temperature outlook forecast September 25th through the 29th, what we're seeing in the jet stream mimics what we have with the temperatures going on at the surface. So you got a ridge of high pressure, which is where that warmth, that heat comes from, and then back out here towards the west, you got that low or that trough digging across the United States and in the jet stream. That's where that pocket of cool air starts to come in. The one thing about this is we're starting to see signs of ways this pattern is going to break down. So while we're expecting above normal temperatures September 25th through the 29th, eventually that ridge is going to break down. That cooler air is going to sink and move over towards the east. Now go ahead and take a look at your screen here. We have some spectacular shots of wheat harvest. Chuck sent this one in. Reports he's getting some great yields. Hope he continues to have a great forecast. I'll have more on that coming up.
It's being called a win for both farmers and animals listed as endangered species. The U.S. Department of Justice this week resolving a long-standing lawsuit over pesticides. In 2011, the Center for Biological Diversity and Pesticide Action Network filed a complaint in a California court against EPA, alleging it was violating the Endangered Species Act because it registered or reevaluated the registration of more than 280 pesticide ingredients. That was reduced to 35 active ingredients covering more than 1,000 pesticide products. EPA says the settlement allows the agency to protect endangered species while conducting reviews and approvals of pesticides in a safe and productive manner. Avian flu has returned to Canada. The country reporting it has detected highly pathogenic avian influenza in a commercial poultry flock, the first since May. The World Organization for Animal Health saying the presence of HPIA was confirmed at a commercial operation in Warner County, Alberta last week. It says the farm was a mixed operation that included turkeys, broilers, and layers. It involved just under 2,000 animals, 390 which had died. The remaining birds were euthanized. There haven't been any commercial bird farms impacted by HPIA in the U.S. since April. Soybeans pivoting midweek, but that's not all. I'll have a market update next. And later, how sheep have become an important part of this regenerative farm in Idaho in the country. And right now, the rest of the AgDay crew, including Clinton Griffiths, are in Ames, Iowa. They're gearing up for another edition of our College Roadshow. We'll have a look at the latest research going on, including new ways of combining solar farms with agriculture. Plus, when you think of Iowa, you probably don't think of wine, but some folks are trying to change that. Check out AgDay from Iowa State Friday morning.
AgDay is brought to you by Endzone from Farm Shop MFG. Rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's a free semi-load added to your bottom line. What are you waiting for? Call to order your Endzone today.
How much did the big seed companies spend on research and development versus sales? The Economic Research Service coming up with an interesting chart. Take a look. This follows the world's 7 largest seed companies. So we're talking about Bayer, Corteva, Syngenta, BASF, and 3 others, as well as 25 legacy companies that have merged with or have been acquired by these companies since 1990. You can see total R&D spending on crop improvement increased from less than $2 billion in 1990 to more than $6.5 billion by 2021, and sales have followed right along for the most part. Researchers say the profits allow seed companies to spend more on crop research, increasing the rate of new varieties with high productivity potential, as well as charging more for those improved seeds.
Joining us with markets at Garrett Toy Ag Trader Talk, and mostly higher prices on Wednesday, corn and soybeans. Was that mostly short covering activity or technical in nature, Garrett?
It feels a little bit short covering. It feels, the soybean market is a little bit more oversold than the corn market is, even though corn has acted a little bit better this week. I think it's important the last 2 days we've had buying, fairly significant buying tails here. We came up just short of this 100-day moving average of 13.05. And I'm really not going to get too excited to get friendly until we get above 13.24 from a technical standpoint. But the sell-off, I'm a little bit surprised that we broke through the 200-day moving average as easy as we did earlier this week. The market is carrying quite a bit of length, and they probably wanted to pair that ahead of harvest as it picks up every day.
Yeah, and do you think we can keep going here, especially with the fact that we're right in the middle of harvest? So we're going to see some pressure from that, aren't we?
We are. It's going to be tough to see a sustained rally. I'd rather we're closer to the October days. B, C, harvest closer to 50% complete. Until then, rallies are going to be a struggle. But the market still wants to be long soybeans. I think a lot of this correction has been some profit taking and some of the intercommodity spreads, corn versus soybeans, wheat versus other things, that sort of thing. And I think that's just some evening up in the marketplace.
What would we have to close at in corn to keep the rally going, or what are you watching technically in that market?
Well, we traded right there today. That's 593, the trend line off of the August lows. If we can get above that in this 20-day moving average at 483, excuse me, that's the key. That's the key number.
And the cattle market closed higher, so we had a little bit of a correction, and we just keep seeing healthy corrections in a pretty big bull market, don't we?
Absolutely. New contract highs yesterday, and I think a lot of people coming in today with a reversal action yesterday thought that we'd be lower, and here we came roaring back, and it's a nice, strong close. I think that with cattle and feed here at the end of the week, we'll probably just see consolidation here near term until we see those numbers.
Thanks for joining us. That is Garrett Toy, Ag Trader Talk, and that is Markets Now. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
To contact Garrett, call him at 888-745-2020 or find him at agtradertalk.com.
Your next piece of equipment is on machinerypete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on machinerypete.com.
I wanted to revisit the flooding potential map. That we did this yesterday, and we're going to do it, well, again today. The flooding potential starts to increase underneath that ridge, not necessarily right underneath it, but it's kind of that balance between that trough digging back here to the west and that ridge building off to the east. Right in between is where we have the best lift in the atmosphere. That's why we get more to about a 15 to 40% chance of flooding in across Oklahoma, a little bit into Tennessee. We're also playing with some Gulf moisture as well. Now, as we go into Friday, you see the energy is going to be back up here towards the Dakotas and Montana, where we see a 15 to 40% chance of some flooding. And then the one thing I really want to point out on the East Coast, a tropical type system. It's kind of a hybrid system. It's going to be working from the south to the north along the East Coast, bringing a good 2 to possibly 6 inches of rainfall in and across North Carolina, Virginia. Again, the time on that is going to be for Friday, also a little bit through the weekend, depending on how that system moves the next few days. Speaking of which, so we looked at the above average temperature map a little bit ago. You see how that kind of matches up with what we got with the jet stream. A ridge of high pressure, a shallow, kind of a bit of a shortwave, if you will, working across the United States Thursday and into Friday. So we may kick up some showers, some cloud cover for Thursday. That's going to be moving off on Friday and into Saturday, with the dominant feature being that ridge. 2 little circles that you see, one up towards Montana and the Dakotas. So that's where that rain's coming from Friday into Saturday. And then that tropical system, if you want to call it that, is starting to show up now in the jet stream as well, with that circle right there. So both of these have the support of the jet stream. That's why the flooding potential increased over those areas, with that map that we just looked at. As for the precipitation outlook, this is September 25th through the 29th. You got the Dakotas and Montana showing the possibility of wetter than normal conditions. Same situation over towards the southeast and the east coast. California, mostly cloudy. That's Catalina Island. Avalon, mostly cloudy, 68 degrees. Dover, high around 76 degrees, low of 58. And what about Montana? Grass Range, fun fact, population 250.
AgDay is brought to you by Purina. Unlock your dairy beef calves' potential with Prime Start, a specialized nutrition protocol to optimize growth and profit. Visit purinamills.com/dairy-beef to learn more.
Both live and feeder cattle futures hit all-time highs this week as a function of historically tight supplies. In the final part of our State of the Beef Industry, we look at how long these strong prices could last. Now, the last bull market in 2014-15 was rather short-lived. It too was a result of drought-induced culling, but this time the cuts were even deeper. So industry and market experts agree there is upside into 2024 because the smallest cattle inventory is yet to come.
To me, our tightest numbers have the chance to be at the end of the fourth quarter and the beginning of the first quarter next year. And, nobody bets pork chop, right? I'll bet a steak dinner that we see the market above 200 at some point in the first quarter.
The key will be when cattle producers start keeping heifers instead of selling them at these high prices, which hasn't happened yet. And with the cow herd at 62-year lows, this bull market could have a longer tail than past bull markets.
We're not seeing any significant heifer retention at this point. the drought continues to be a problem in major cattle production areas. And instead of us being what was maybe a one-hit wonder back in 14 and 15, I think we're looking at 4 or 5, maybe even longer.
Hopefully, the numbers show that we're going to stay in a 3-year cycle, and we can encourage some of these young people to get their footing.
And profitability is needed for the future of the industry because the average age of the cattle producer continues to rise. The record cattle prices are causing packer margins to move back into the red. The latest Sterling Beef Profit Tracker reports cattle feeding margins gained about $10 per head last week, closing at an estimated $343 per head. Beef packers saw a $51 per head decline, which pushed margins $11 into the red, while the packer feeder margin reached $354 per head in favor of cattle feeders. Now, cash cattle prices averaged just over $184 per hundredweight, up about $1.20 from the previous week. That price is 22% higher than the same time last year. Cattle sold last week carried a total feed cost of $549 on average, down $11 from the previous week. Still ahead, what do you think of when you think of regenerative agriculture? One farming couple is all about it, and they're trying out many different things. See how it's working in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by Agorocarbon. Agorocarbon works with farmers and ranchers to implement sustainable practices on farms and ranches that provides a new revenue stream. Agorocarbon.com.
In Idaho, a farming couple is experimenting with new methods to help improve soil health, crop quality, and their bottom line. The Idaho Farm Bureau shows us their unique regenerative farming program.
We started using biostimulants, cutting back our fertilizer rates and sugars, and looking at the microbes and the rotations. We're just trying to find the right way to do this, maybe blend the organic side to the commercial side, find something happy in between that. We had cattle. I had 120 head of cattle growing up my whole life, and we kind of switched to sheep 10 years ago. Time flies. They're just a little easier to move around over the fields than the cattle are.
The sheep are not like goats. They're not going to like totally take down the brush, but they really love the tender shoots in the spring, and so they'll really reduce the size of the brush. And so we've kind of set up a pattern, and we started out here on Mission Creek Canyon because if there was a fire to come up, that's where I would start. And so we start out there and we just reduce forage. This field here is all old CRP ground that we have been rotationally grazing and putting into pasture ground with some decent grass. And we have the high tensile fence around it. It's a great place to wean lambs and to bring everybody in when you need to kind of regroup and check moms. But this year, with it being so dry, I've had to utilize this with my mothers. So moms and babies are on this. Right now we're kind of in a holding pattern with these sheep because we don't have crops cut that we can get out on some other canyon grounds. I brought in a semi-load of onions the other day. The great thing about onions is they're like 80% water. So when it's so hot like this, it really helps cut down on our water use also. And the other great thing about onions is their skin is like the nutrition quality of barley. And so you're kind of giving these lambs a little boost and giving them a little grain and helping them continue to grow even though we're in dry conditions.
3 years ago in the spring, I started using this bioactive emissions technology. The exhaust from the tractor comes into this fusion tank. That comes out of these tanks, goes back these tubes underneath the tractor right here, all the way back to the drill, and goes through these cyclones, blows all this steam right into the fan on the drill. This drill's 56 feet long, so all the steam's going back through all that. We've also got a liquid tank. I put liquid biostimulants on. There's a lot of stuff going on. The system's been pretty fail-safe. There's been some things I've had to work on, and it's like anything else, another thing that you're trying to do different, you just got to learn through the whole deal. So anytime you're being innovative and doing an early adopter and some of this stuff, everybody learns from your mistakes, everybody that's watching. We're looking at net profit per acre, not gross. Sure, I love the best crop on the ridge. I mean, I want to have that too, but what pays the bills is net, and that's what our goal kind of is.
When you're starting to feel discouraged in something you're doing, your neighbor or the guy all the way across the state can give you a little insight on something he was doing that helps you refocus your mind and refocus your energy, and it keeps you alive in the farming business. It keeps you alive in the community.
Our thanks to the Idaho Farm Bureau for that story. That's all the time we have for this morning. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at AgDay, I'm Michelle Rook. Have a great day.